Ayo, what is up everyone? It is the Alpha J of the Alpha J Show, and welcome to Character Clash, a series on my channel where I compare two characters, look for core traits, and see how I would write a character with a similar general premise. Bear in mind, if anything I say is negated, wrong, or inaccurate because of a future episode, note the date that this was posted. So today, yet again, I'm going to play Devil's Advocate, but with good intentions. You know how no one wants to defend Fanboy and Chum Chum? No one wants to knock on 40-20%? Well, how many of you dislike Peggy Hill? What if I told you that, yet again, I was wrong?
Jeez, Hank, you must be very ignorant to this, or just the nicest man in the world.
Well, actually, Hank is kind of in the same boat as Peggy. There are some fundamental differences, but let me explain. So Peggy gets a lot of criticism in episodes such as Lupe's Revenge, Death in Texas, which I review, check it out by the way, and Full Metal Dust Jacket. All examples of Peggy putting herself before morality and common sense. However, Hank has very similar moments where he puts himself before morality. Now, in Who's the Dummy, where Hank decided that since Bobby's portrayal of a brother was much more desirable to himself, he would much rather have him as a son, willingly. Hank's Choice, where Hank decided to pick a dog over Bobby, to the point of having Bobby sleep in a doghouse and convince himself that this is okay. Square Peg, another episode I reviewed by the way, an episode where Hank's morality flip-flops because he himself doesn't understand the situation of sex education fully. Both Hank and Peggy are super confident about their occupations. Now, it is up in the air for which you think is justified. Now, most people would believe that Hank is actually competent at his job, while Peggy is not qualified at all. Well, you would be right for the most part. Hank sells propane and propane accessories. Peggy Hill teaches broken Spanish and sometimes writes for her local newspaper column. Let us remember the episode Bystand Me, where she got Min to basically do her own job for her, and when she tried herself, she made a recipe for toxic gas. However, what's fundamental about this is that two wrongs do not make a right. Both Hank and Peggy Hill are stubborn, and they both don't budge. In this episode here, Hank never admitted to crying until about a third way into the episode. In fact, he barely even says that he loves Peggy. It's just to be assumed. I think there's a lot of people who would also bring up that Hank may be stubborn, but he's also brave. He was afraid of bats, but he still went to save his son. He was afraid of everyone seeing him and his butt flaps, but he did it anyway. Heck, he even confronted a bull and ran away. If that's not brave, I don't know what is. Now, one may ask, has Peggy done anything on the caliber of being considered brave? Well, there was that one time she confronted Luann's kidnapper, practically a mentally impaired, eccentric man. She also helped Hank get off the video game addiction because he felt a video game portraying himself was much more important than exercise. The same physical activity he's seen in other episodes pushing for Bobby to do. In fact, you know how telling Peggy that she doesn't know Spanish is practically a sin? Well, try telling Hank that charcoal is better than propane. Oh wait, in fact, Peggy decided to feed into Hank's own ego in Hank and the Great Glass Elevator and tell him that she thinks a propane burger is better. The lie was so blatant that Bobby even caught on to this. And Bobby takes a long time to catch on to these things. However, this video isn't let's justify Peggy by showing the occasions where Hank does this too. My main reasoning here is that they both have very similar behavior. It's what makes the show. It's just that Hank is the lesser evil, so to speak. Hank can integrate into society much better than Peggy, which has more to do with their upbringing than it does anything else. I believe this is a cultural thing. They're supposed to be on that spectrum. How extreme their conservation is, well, for another discussion. Peggy does a lot worse than Hank. Don't get me wrong. There was also a time where Peggy literally turned on her own morals because Bobby was a better Peggy than Peggy. However, that episode is an argument in itself as to who's really in the wrong, because although Peggy did decide to turn her back on her own principle of Bobby being whatever he wants to be, it was Hank who wasn't so quick to the punch in giving Peggy the attention she wanted as well. But take this into account. There was also the episode Bobby Goes Nuts, where Peggy's own ego is actually what helps Bobby see the error of his ways. There was also the episode Bill of Sales, where Peggy decides to not work Bill over and put her own ego aside. These are all examples of Peggy's character being used for a good intention and it actually being good. So to close, Peggy and Hank are similar in the following ways. Both Peggy and Hank show that sometimes their desire for better things take over their morality. Both Hank and Peggy are very confident in their abilities, whether it's there or not. Their egos have contributed to both good and bad moments of morality. Both are stubborn, hard-headed, and most likely never learn their lesson. Both of them usually mean well, but also stick to their guns, worrying about themselves more, unless their morality hits. Both hate to be wrong, but also hate being in the wrong. If I were to write a character that would fit this show similar to Hank and Peggy, I would give them strong moral values, a strong work ethic, and a degree of ignorance. All of these things contribute to why we hate or love Peggy and Hank. So when you bash Peggy, bash Hank as well, because maybe they're right for each other. I mean, things could be a lot worse on the other side of the adult animation spectrum, so let us at least appreciate this for what it is. So this was my third character clash. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below, and also tell me which character you like more. There's also a poll at the top, usually where the cards are for pretty much a lot of my recent videos, so make sure to vote there as well. As always, I hope your time was well spent, and Alpha